The Carpenter and the Cradle, a History Weaver Adventure, Book 1, by Connie Worden, read by the author. Chapter 18. Coral's hazel green eyes widened as June told her the story of Georgie. They had biked to the Woo's rental property and were sitting in the vacant shed. "Wait a minute, you knew the mystery girl who saved my life when I got that bee sting? You knew who that was?" Coral latched onto. "Yup. That was Georgie. Victoria, really, but she doesn't mind if we call her Georgie, which we all do because that's what we all called her for a month while she was living with Lady Cromarty and couldn't talk. I mean, she could, but she didn't, so we didn't know her name and she didn't tell us it then, so we just called her Georgie," June explained. "But remind me, why Georgie again?" "Because—" June stopped mid-sentence. She knew why they called her Georgie. But it suddenly occurred to her that they had never asked Georgie why she should have said the words Georgie Green immediately upon briefly waking from her unconscious state after the hit and run. And they'd never asked her what the words meant. Out loud she said, "After she was hit by the car and Lady Cromarty and I went to see how she was unconscious at first, but she opened her eyes for a bit and just said 2 words, Georgie Green. We thought that maybe she was saying her name. But we forgot to ask her what the words meant now that we know it's not her name. I guess it's just occurring to me now that we still don't know what she meant. We just started calling her Georgie and we kept on calling her that." "What could that mean, Georgie Green?" Coral mused, wrinkling her forehead. "Maybe it didn't mean anything," Fern suggested shyly. She was just coming to, like you're sleeping and dreaming, the weirdest things occur to you that don't mean anything. Or not anything you can figure out anyway. And then half the time, I'm still in that weird dazed state where nothing I'm thinking makes any sense even when I'm first awake." July considered the theory for a second. "That's possible, Fern. Or it's possible it may have meant something. I'll tell you what, we can go to our house after we get a good look around the shed and we can go online and look for any Georgie Greens. We'll probably find lots of them on the internet. We can do a little exploring, see if any of them could potentially have any connection to our Georgie. Maybe one of them could be from somewhere around here or something. I don't think Georgie could have come to Beaver Row from halfway around the world. My guess is she started from somewhere near here." "Not a bad idea, sis," June said, popping her lightly in the arm with a clenched fist. "Not just another pretty face, are ya? For such a pretty little redhead, it's a pretty good head you have on those shoulders sometimes. Well, now that Coral's up to date, let's get on with searching the shed like we came to do, right?" "Yep, let's do it," the girls agreed. They gave the shed a thorough search, sweeping it carefully with the broom that lived in the corner of the one-room shack. On the shelves there was nothing but dust. On the floor there were bits of debris, but nothing looked particularly significant. Until Fern held a torn and empty gum package up to the light coming through the spotty window pane that let the only daylight into the shed. "It's not a brand of gum I'm familiar with," she said, a little apologetically, as though afraid of wasting the group's time on something unessential. "No, I don't recognize it either," July agreed. "They sell it in the UK, Coral volunteered nonchalantly. "My family traveled there a few years ago. I remember buying some there. I've never seen it anywhere else since." "Weird," July said. "I don't think it could have been left by my family or our last renters. We've never been to the UK. I don't see why the renters would have had gum from the UK either," Fern said. "It is weird that Georgie would have gum from the UK, but it must have been left by her," June put in. "Yeah, but the weirdest thing is that she didn't have any of this gum in her backpack when she was hit, remember? The nurse told us all that was found in it. She didn't mention any gum," July said. "How would you remember that?" June scoffed. "Did you instantly memorize every word the nurse said?" "No, but I just happened to remember what she did say, and there was no gum mentioned." "Maybe she had it in her jeans pocket or something," Fern put in. "No, that doesn't totally make sense either," July said slowly. "We knew her when she lived at Lady Cromarty's for that month. She had this pack of gum that whole time. We never saw it at all. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen Georgie chew gum. Somehow, after all this time, the gum surfaces." So, June knew from the narrowing of her twins' eyes that she had some particular thought in her head. "What do you think, then? What's your theory about this gum?" "What if," July paused for effect. What if this gum didn't come from Georgie? Who else could it have come from? Fern asked. My family's never been to the UK. We wouldn't have a gum package from a brand of gum sold in the UK kicking around our shed. I've never seen it sold around here. You two were supplying Georgie with food, and neither of you brought it to her, obviously. It must have come from Georgie. She's the only person that would have been around the shed. Are you sure about that? July said in a provoking tone. What are you trying to say, Ju? Oh, gosh, I never thought of that. Do you really think... Will you two with your little twins mind bridge please fill Coral and I in on what we're missing? Fern grumbled lightly. Who else plays some kind of role in Georgie's story? July said, still unwilling to state in plain black and white the thought she'd had. Oh, Coral suddenly caught on. You mean the wicked stepfather, the one she thought was driving the car that hit her. You think that maybe the stepfather caught up with her? That maybe he traced her to the shed somehow and that he dropped the gum package? Or maybe she did. Maybe he offered her a pack of gum trying to appear friendly and all that. I don't know. It's just what's occurring to me as we speak. I don't know what to think. Just thinking out loud, July said. Maybe you're making too much out of a stray gum package, June said a little scornfully. It's just a theory, July said, all business now. But the gum doesn't make sense unless there was someone in the shed besides Georgie. The stepfather's the only person I can think of that would explain both the British gum and Georgie disappearing without a word to us. I don't think she would have gone with him willingly. If she just refused to go with him and he threatened her with a weapon or something, he could have forced her to go with him, but maybe he started off pretending to be nice and trying to put her off her guard by offering her gum. I just wonder how he knew where to find her. Do you think he's been watching her? And us? Do you think that's how he found her, by watching us? He may have been keeping an eye on us since he hit her and left her for dead in the ditch by her place. I bet the stepfather knows about us, June half-whispered, a little chill running up and down her spine. I never did tell you, Ju, about those phone calls when I was watching the store and Georgie was living with Lady Cromarty. Someone kept calling the bookshop and then just hanging up. I bet it was the stepfather trying to find out what he could by calling the bookshop. After all, we have the bookshop sign out front, right by where he hit Georgie. He'd just have to look us up in the phone book. Maybe he thought he'd hear her voice in the background if she ended up staying with us or something. I don't know. Or he was just being creepy. Could have just been different people calling the wrong number and hanging up when you answered with the bookshop name, 'cause they didn't want to bother telling you they had the wrong number, Coral conjectured. June shrugged. Maybe, but it happened more often than normal just then. I don't know what he'd hoped to learn by calling the bookshop and hanging up, but he likely does know about us, July said solemnly. He must have known Georgie wasn't killed in the hit and run, because there was no announcement of her death, so he must have realized that the bookshop people found her. We never really thought about where the car went to after it hit her, but the road past our place runs into the forest. He must have driven into it and waited till the coast was clear to come out. Maybe he's even been hiding out there and keeping an eye on us. A full-grown shiver ran the entire length of June's spine this time, and she clenched her jaw to keep her teeth from chattering. I just had a thought, too, Coral broke in. Georgie Green, it could be a man's name. What if that's the name of the stepfather? I mean, she never told you his name, did she? They all turned to look at Coral, and no one answered her. The whole thing had just become far too real. Let's go home, June said quickly. Exactly, July said. Let's get on the computer and see what we can learn about anyone named George or Georgie Green. But what good will it do us if we find out anything? June asked in a near whisper. I can't see what we can possibly do. If we can learn anything for real, July said, we're going to the police with what we know, and then we'll tell them what we suspect as well. Come on, you guys, let's get investigating.